Hello, this is a quick recording to show how to do auto tracing in Adobe Illustrator. So I'll switch to Adobe Illustrator, say create new, make it an A4 page, seems to be as good as any, and off we go. There's the A4 page. So the first thing we want to do is we want to bring in our scan. If we have gone through the scanning process of taking your line illustration, bring it in grayscale, harden it up, and then convert it to a bitmap, and then save it as a TIFF in LZW compression, you should be able to bring it in and place it on the page. So you go to File, and you say Place. Pardon me. And if I go to my external drive, where I've got some images stored, if I go into, I think, week 4, and I just look at these as icons, ideally, I should be able to find a decent icon. These are ones. That's a very good one done by one of the students. So I'm going to say Place, and then I'm going to let it drop into place. By holding Shift down, I can actually make it bigger. Probably not a bad idea to make it bigger, because I suspect that when you auto trace, it wraps around the pixels as it sees it. So at the moment, the picture is sitting in this blue box with an X through the middle, meaning that it's a placed picture. So while you clicked on it, you go to Object, because that's what it is, and you go down to Image Trace, and you say Make. I like doing Make. You can do Make and Expand, but rather just do Make. It always complains slightly about the number of pixels, and then you say OK, and then it does it anyway. So it's going through a process of wrapping vector paths around the black, where the black and white images meet each other. So if I go zooming in, you can see it's no longer a drawing, it's now got vector paths. And this is where it's a good idea, if it's really important to you, to actually join up some of these lines. If you really want to do it properly, it's worth kind of poring over the illustration and joining it up. So what we want to do is we want to go back to Size, and to get to the vector paths we have to go to the object and expand it. And it asks you to expand both the object and the fill. Now the fill is the white area and the object is the black. So you say OK, and that has released it into vector paths. But in other words, the white area is a color and the black area is a color. So if I just select the whole thing, the inner path done, I could in fact get rid of the white line completely. Now it does mean that you should take a little bit of work to join up these areas, like that area there could be joined up. But I think the general gist has been made, so I could now select everything, and I could go to the line, and I could say remove the line, and now we've got a black and white drawing, auto-traced, and all the little separate areas are available. Incidentally, Spotlight keeps coming up, and I want to just show you how to turn this off, because if you press the space bar and the Alt together, up comes Spotlight, which is an essential set of keys in Adobe. Go up to the Apple, go to System Preferences very quickly, and when it comes, get rid of the keyboard shortcuts. So that there's the keyboard shortcuts, and it's Spotlight you want to turn off. And if you turn those two off and say OK, then by using the spacebar you can move it around, and spacebar Alt means you've got a magnifying glass, and Alt spacebar Command and Alt means you can reduce the size. So this really just demonstrates that you could actually implement different colors into different fields. It is actually a very nice way to start getting the illustration to look interesting. So let's put a bit of orange into the Command Z. We want that to have no fill. I'm sorry, I'm making a mistake. I need to go to the fill, and I'm going to make it go to the swatch. and I'm going to put in brown. So I could really just make the illustration become much more interesting by putting different bits of colour in different places. And okay, so we might go in there and make that go flesh colour. We might make that go flesh colour. And as you can see, the yellow has leaked in down here. Again, we've also got a white area there, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but it looks to me as though that might want to be filled with black as well. No, it's not. It's that the yellow has actually moved. If I wanted to, I could actually delete the whole of the colour background and having it as a standalone. And if, just out of interest, if you want to join things like this, you may need to take this and drag it across, and then maybe we can use the Pathfinder. I don't know if this will work, but the Pathfinder will allow it to become one element. There's the Pathfinder. I'll put that in over my menus. Up comes the Pathfinder, and I will say combine. So now that's made it into one area. So if I want to, I can then perhaps click on the inner path here, copy it, and then paste it back in place. And then I could make that become a flesh colour again. So there we go. So in other words, if you delete an area, you can always copy the path. You see that path there probably needs to be made black. And so does that path there need to be made black. So this is where working on your bitmap before you bring it in could save you all kinds of problems. You know, for instance, this shoulder here should have had a solid shape within it. So if that was joined to that, which we could do very quickly, if I took that point, pulled it over there, and then went to the Pathfinder and said, make it into one object, then I could click on the outside path, copy it, paste it back into place, puts it back into exactly the right place, and then I could make that go into the red the way the t-shirt was. So I hope that's made sense. I'm going to stop the recording now. So when it comes to saving this, you ought to save these files as, in my opinion, you can save them in several ways. Save them ideally onto your own drive. I'm going to do it onto the computer, and I'm going to call it Autotrace. Autotrace from Bitmap. From Bitmap. And you could save it in AI, Adobe Illustrator. I would recommend that you save them as PDF because you can always open them up with a PDF afterwards. You can always open a PDF afterwards from Illustrator, with Illustrator. Also, an EPS file, encapsulated PostScript is what it stands for. It prints very well in most formats. So if you want to go onto the laser cutter, PDF and EPS both work, but I would suggest PDF because it means that it can be read by internet browsers. So there we are. I'm just saving, and I save it a second time, and that has now been saved to the desktop. So there we go. So I'm going to stop the recording now.